Now we move on to the keynote panel, where the focus of our discussion would be, on analyzing the Indian two-wheeler industry and how it fared last year, and how will it how are the challenges and opportunities going to be for the next few years. To shed more light on what is the path ahead, I would invite the panelists on the industry leaders on stage. So just to introduce, we have Mr. Vinkesh Gulati, who's the president of FADA, Mr. Aniruddha Haldar, who's senior VP marketing at TVS Motor Company, Mr. Parthanil Ghosh, who's president motor business at HDFC Ergo, Mr. Bipul Chandra, managing director Ducati India, Mr. Srinivas Kanteti, who's co-founder and MD Bike Bazaar, Mr. Jitendra Sharma, founder and MD Okinawa Autotech, and finally, we have a moderator for the keynote session, Mr. Kaushik Madhavan, Vice President Mobility, Frost and Sullivan. Kaushik, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rohit. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you very much. We've had some very, very interesting perspectives from Diego in his opening speech. So very clearly, the automotive, let's say the two-wheeler industry has seen some very, very exciting times, right? Over the past, let's say 12 to 24 months. Obviously, we all saw and we experienced what happened, let's say beginning of 2020, and the effects of that continued into 2021 as well. But a lot of people expected, the festive season, the recently concluded festive season, to be a bit of a boost to the automotive industry, both from the two-wheeler perspective and also from the passenger vehicle perspective. I think it was a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, there were areas where, the market performed as per expectations, but definitely certain areas where the market did not. And looking at the two-wheeler space, this has been a very, very exciting space. Now, not only have we had the round of electrification that we have seen, with a lot of OEMs opening up and bringing in their electric two-wheeler models. And on the other hand, we have also seen a lot of investments on the infrastructure side of things as well, right? When we talk about electrification, when we talk about investments in charging infrastructure, public charging infrastructure. So I think the next, 6 to 12 months are going to be very, very dynamic from the two-wheeler perspective. And, for multiple reasons. One, we will see a lot more electric two-wheelers being introduced in the market. Safety, in fact, great presentation, from Mr. Putan from Autoliv on the safety aspect when it comes to two-wheelers. Typically, unfortunately, I would say safety for two-wheelers has often been an ignored aspect when it comes to India, right? And that needs to change. It's a mindset that we need to change. So we need to start emphasizing a little more on safety technologies. We have seen the emergence of ABS, becoming standard. We have seen, smart helmets coming in. We have seen, new safety technologies that can be worn around the neck. In the event of a crash, it forms an inflatable helmet, right? So we are seeing a lot of these new technologies coming in. So definitely, something to chew on and see how we can bring all these elements together. Today, I'm very happy to have a diverse set of co-panelists, not only from the OEM perspective, but also from the finance perspective, for example. And also, I'm very, very excited to have Bike Bazaar, Srinivas from Bike Bazaar, because this is an area that's close to my heart. So I'm pretty confident I'll have a heart-to-heart conversation with Srinivas. But before that, I'd like to request each one of you to share your opening comments, very similar to what I did, maybe a 60-second opening comments, just to share your thoughts, what you think is going to happen. And based on that, we're going to have a panel discussion. I want to bounce off a few ideas of each of you. I have noted a few points as well, something going to be very interesting, very informal. So with that, I would first request Bipul to share your thoughts, from an OEM's perspective. Bipul, where do you see the two-wheeler market heading? I know you come from a very, very aspirational brand, if I can call it, right? I'm a petrol head, and I've had the opportunity to ride your Panigale V4S, and I must tell you, that it scared the wits out of me, right? I have been an automotive two-wheeler enthusiast. I've ridden bikes, but this bike scared the hell out of me. So nevertheless, from a premium OEM's perspective, where do you see opportunities in the Indian market? If you can share your thoughts.
Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible clearly.
Yes.
Great. So thanks a lot, Mr. Kaushik, for the first movers advantage to the premium bike. And yes, you are right. We are on the top of the value chain. You can say one of the most aspirational brand and one of the most aspirational part of the industry as well. So it's not only Ducati, but all the my fellow bike makers in the same segment as well. So we are definitely on the top of the game per se, because everyone thinks that one day I will wish to ride or own a big bike or a super bike. And the way Indian industry is going, we are very happy as such. Although volume-wise, we are nowhere actually. It's a very blunt statement, but that's the fact. If we look at the overall two-wheeler industry in India, if we are talking of 15 million, 17 million, 20 million kind of two-wheelers in an year, then probably 7,000, 10,000 units per year for a superbike, anything which is above 500 cc is a very, very small pie segment of the pie. We are nowhere. But the way industry has bounced back post BS4, BS6 migration and post the global pandemic, I think that's a clear-cut direction that we Indians are also now taking life very, or rather, I would say we are not taking life that seriously. We are looking for some enjoyment in life now. We are moving out of the houses. We are definitely spending some money on the big things, and we are taking time out of our busy schedule and enjoying life by riding much more than what we were doing earlier. However, what we see in our own data, the average riding has still not reached the level which was like, let's say in 2017, 2018 kind of thing. The numbers are still lesser than what we had in 2017, 2018. So going by those things, the road is definitely very positive because the direction is definitely there. We can see a positive drift for our sales numbers, for the people coming to our showrooms, for the people asking about our various kinds of rides and everything, the attendance of people for the track days, everything. So that's a very, very positive thing. And I'm sure my fellow panelists would agree to that. Per se, despite whatever seesaw kind of movement we have seen in the two-wheeler segment right now in the past 1 year or 2 years time space, still we are positive and we are there with all the bikes, whatever we have. So probably that's the opening statement from my side.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Bipul. I really liked a couple of points you made, especially on the footfall and track days you spoke about. Essentially, it's a broader umbrella of customer engagement, right?
True.
And that applies to every brand, whether it is a premium brand or a mass market brand or any two-wheeler brand, right? So I'm going to come back to that later. So I want to come to you, Aniruddha, now. From a premium aspirational brand to a brand that is so entrenched in the customers' minds in India, right? A brand that is a household name when it comes to two-wheelers, right? So how do you see, the evolution of the Indian two-wheeler market, let's say for the next 12 to 24 months, short to medium term? Where do you see the opportunities for growth?
So thank you very much for the opportunity. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
So I think that was a very interesting way that we start off with, the tone that Ducati sets, that the lifestyle is definitely here and Indians are out there. So with TVS, the one good thing is that we have at one end the Apache, which is, sharing some of that exuberance, where there is definitely a lot of interest, a lot of growing lifestyle in riding. We also come across all the way from scooters into entry-level economy motorcycles, and we see some of that exuberance wane in terms of recent times. And though we were all quite keen and hopeful that the festive would go a certain way, I think our ambitions outstripped what we saw in the market. And somewhere I think that is reflective of the fact that the consumer is becoming far more discerning and being a little more careful on what they're going, at least from where their resources are still under constraint. But mobility, fortunately, is a demand that doesn't go away. It is not a perishable demand. I mean, you miss a pizza for lunch and that's gone. You're not going to have two. But if you need a bike to go somewhere, you will need it. You may delay it, but it will be there. So we do believe that this mobility requirement, especially accentuated by COVID, that personal mobility space is definitely going to get bigger. In the Indian context, the two-wheeler is the ideal solution for that in terms of personal safety and mobility and economy, which is aided by lifestyle factors at the top end. And I think we as an industry, we will see a very, very interesting transition going forward as we electrify. And that will see a completely new dimension. And I see electrification, while it's a drivetrain switchover, I think what will come along with it is this entire layer of connected vehicles, the entire dimension of services itself altering and giving birth to a host of new business models, new services. And your ride is one part of it as the sheer ride component of it, and the other is the experience that you will have on your vehicle as part of your entire connected lifestyle. I think that's going to be a bigger change going forward. Electric is going to be big, but the move to connected vehicles across all formats at all levels is going to be the other big dimension that we'll see. This will change the way we understand mobility today. And I think the kind of services that we will need to bring to bear is going to be extremely critical. Keeping that in mind, the next route is coming back to your question, which is mid to long term. The long term is always great, and in the biggest long term, you're all dead. So somewhere in the middle, I think we will do much to recover all that that pent-up demand over the last period that we have seen. I think that will come back, aided by the quality of products that we're offering. TVS has been extremely keen in terms of being offering value-rich offerings, whether it is our recent forays as the TVS Raider, the TVS Jupiter 125. We're coming in at the premium end of the market, offering augmented products, offering products which far greater value, and we are seeing a very different traction there than from other parts of the market. So I think the consumer is definitely there. The mobility demand is there to stay. It is what we bring in, that how appealing it is, that will shake them to come into the market and make that purchase. So that is where I would restrict myself for now, and very happy to be part of this panel.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aniruddha. I think you made some very, very valid points, especially on the connected vehicles, connected services, right? Based on new business models. In fact, I'm going to talk about that as well during our panel discussion. So thanks very much for those insights. Vinkesh, I'm coming to you now. So I think you have a very, very unique perspective on this panel today, right? Coming from a FADA, you have a bird's eye view on what's happening from the passenger car perspective, from the two-wheeler perspective, from the commercial vehicle perspective, right? As the president of the dealer association. So specifically, where do you see the performance of two-wheelers in India from a dealer touchpoint standpoint, right? Typically, the dealership is considered the interface between the customer and the OEM, right? The role of a dealership has changed. So where do you see the evolution or the role of dealership changing in the two-wheeler context? Your opening thoughts, Vinkesh.
So morning, Kaushik, and thanks Rohit for having us. Good morning to all the panelists and the viewers of the session. I'm really interested to hear everybody out. Two-wheeler is the most important category of automobile as of now, and for your information, it covers 70-75% of the sales in India, and India is the number one in world in two-wheeler sales. So the importance is there. And Kaushik, we call it FADA, not FADA as of now. So just for information. So
my apologies. I noted.
Not an issue. So practically, see, no doubt, things have been changing for the past 4 or 5 years since the digital has taken you can say the main importance. And COVID has actually been a catalyst to shift. Or you can say push the shift from physical to digital. So what we say, it is now becoming more phygital as of today. But this is more being seen in major two areas. One is metros, and second in passenger vehicles. Two-wheelers, still the shift to digital is not as compared to the car segment. And on the other point also, that our two-wheeler sales are more rural-based, more semi-urban based than the urban-based. No doubt, like Mr. Bipul said, Ducati would be selling obviously in metros only. But when we talk of two-wheelers, it's the mass market players like Hero, TVS, Bajaj, or HMSI. The footprint is more towards rural, and even if they have 1,000 dealers in India, they'll have at least 7 to 8,000 sub dealers, unorganized players in India, which is actually tier 4 or whatever tier you want to 5, 6, 7, 8, many levels lower, because now we have reached to tehsil level and block level sub dealers. So, talking about change in the dealership pattern of working is there in the metro part, where the setups are becoming smaller, cute, and nearer to the customer, even in the malls and all that things is happening. But if I talk for the full India dealership or the retail strategy, we are still the same. And normally, whosoever wants to come and buy a bike, for him, it's a very, very important decision in his life. So if it's first bike, it's normally after he gets a job, or if it's his first bike, it could be that he has just passed the school, and because he has got top marks, his father has gifted it. So it's a very emotional purchase if you talk of a bike. No doubt there are replacement bikes also, but there are 25 to 50%, 25% cases where it's a first bike and that's an emotional purchase. And that is why the dealer touch point is very, very important. I
Yeah.
still remember 5 years back, one of my salesmen, I was standing there and a person came in and he told, Chacha kaise ho? So I heard, okay. Once he went out, I said, he was your uncle. He said, no, I just called him because he was a bit aged, elder than me, and I knew that if I called him Chacha, he'll respond better. So these are the touch points, which is very, very important. And whatever we can talk of online sale, retail of future, or direct to customer, this all are niche processes, and it is. I'm not saying they don't have their positives. They have their own positives, but when you want to uh, enter a market, or you want to increase the market share, where it is the push strategy and not the pull strategy, dealers and even more dealers sales team, a good sales team is more important as a touch point for any OEM. So we are there to stay whatever the online digital comes in.
Understood. Thank you very much, Vinkesh. I completely agree with you. The point which you made on establishing that personal connect with the customer, right? Somebody told me, I was discussing this with somebody. He said, we don't need sales people anymore. We need storytellers, right? We need people who can tell the customer what the brand can do for them, what it is to be associated with the brand, right? Everybody knows specifications, CC power, right? That's not important anymore, right? So very good point you made. I'll come
And
back
I
to that.
feel one thing more here is how that purchase will boost his image in his locality.
Exactly.
That's
Absolutely.
that's more important, I would say. Yeah,
Absolutely. I
please
completely agree
continue.
with you.
Sorry.
Yeah. Thanks, Vinkesh, for that. So, Parthanil, I want to come to you next, just to, as a continuation of what Vinkesh mentioned, right? Today there is still a big need to take the customer experience, to upcountry markets or rural India and so on. And that automatically brings in the angle of, financing, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you know this better. Close to 3/4 of the vehicle purchase, any vehicle for that matter, in India is financed, right? Maybe even more in certain segments. So, from a finance perspective, how do you see the evolution in India? Do you see the importance increasing of financing increasing in India as obviously vehicles become more and more expensive, more technologies, more features? How do you see the role of a financing organization in the entire two-wheeler ecosystem?
So, first of all, good morning and thank you, Mr. Kaushik. Just one amendment to your statement. I come from an insurance company and not a finance company.
Understood.
So,
Apologies for that. Yeah.
So as far as so as an insurance company, of course, we depend on the broader economy and the broader market, wherever it happens, because it's a general insurance, so the economy does well, we do well, and we provide that insurance to the vehicles. Now, having a vehicle insurance, the third party is a mandatory one. Of course, we know that adoption of vehicle insurance, especially in two-wheeler, is very, very low as we go ahead. Because we say that 50% of the two-wheelers that runs on the road are without an insurance. And of course, the long-term policies and all will address to some part of it. Largely the portion of it, third-party portion of it, where someone dies and there is no funds to support their nominees.
Correct.
But
correct. Yeah.
Aside and coming to the particular issue of mobility, what we are discussing here, as an insurance company and as an industry, we are looking at a situation called CASE. We call it CASE, connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. So while on the connected part, it's a customer convenience, customer safety, also the customer benefit of the commercial aspect of it. And I will speak to it on a few seconds on that. Autonomous is something which at this point of time, we are not looking at it in India. Shared is absolutely that has happened, and that can give a huge benefit to the entire increase of this adoption of mobility. Of course, we are still waiting for the rules as far as insurance is concerned, how it will happen. And the electric. Now, the electric is something which we look at it as the cost of ownership of the customers going down, and thereby the primary market should do far better than whatever we are seeing in the last 2 years. So Mr. Haldar, Mr. Vipul, not only you are affected for a lower business, but look at the motor insurance business that has happened in the industry, and the growth rate is very, very low. So coming to connected, connected is one thing. I think that will be a very, very big topic. Yes, the electric, the adoption will be there, and we are talking about 80% new two-wheelers will be electric in 2030, and the numbers may vary. But where there is a complete unanimity that the private cars, at least in the next 2 years, 3 years, will be 100% connected. Now, connected provides you a benefit of having hyper personalization. As far as insurance premiums are concerned, we can guide the people to have a safe driving or a safety per se within when you talk about a geotagging and so on and so forth, and work is happening on that. The regulator, the insurance regulator, also allowed the sandbox products to come out where you pay as you drive.
Yeah.
So if you are driving only for 2,000 kilometers, your premium will be on that, and you can top it up and so on and so forth. And we are going to see changes on the mobility insurance as far as connected is concerned. For the electric, and this is one topic which is very, very close to our heart, and it has to be because the industry is moving towards it. We try to create products which will help higher adoption of electric vehicles in India. So we wanted to see that why people are hesitating to buy a two-wheeler, electric two-wheeler. And we tried to create products, insurance products to address that. So in an overall basis, as far as an insurer is concerned, whether it is in the urban areas or even in the rural areas, the entire focus by us is product, and also the service associated. When you come for a claim servicing, how easy it is through a AI ML perspective. So we are using wide usage of artificial intelligence and machine learning models on private cars and two-wheelers. And we will see in the next 2 years this part where lots of pain of the customers that they don't get the claims or not timely. For the two-wheeler customers in the far-flung areas, the surveyors take time to go. So there will be a time when these surveyors will be equipped with a camera, with a mobile phone, with the AI ML technology inbuilt, where the approval will be instant. And that will be a huge change that I think we are into that time. Inflection point. We are within that inflection point, and that is going to change.
Yeah, I loved your points, Parthanil. I mean, even at Frost and Sullivan, we have been looking at the UBI market, right? Usage-based insurance market. You touched upon that, pay as you drive insurance, right? I also love the word you used, hyper personalization. I mean that's a wonderful concept, right? Depending on your usage characteristics, driving behavior, you should be able to have specific insurance packages, for customized for that. Excellent points. I'll come back to that in a moment from now. Jitendra, I'm coming to you now. You represent a new age OEM in India, right? We have met and interacted quite a couple of times in different conferences and so on. Now we have seen the transition of, let's say, electric two-wheelers, let's say a few years ago, which were primarily done by fly-by-night operators, right? Chinese OEMs who used to come operate for a few months, go away after completely vanish from the scene. And that's changed, right? So today we've got, the likes of yourself, Okinawa, Aethers, 22 Motors, making electric two-wheelers mainstream, right? Competing with the IC engine two-wheeler. So where do you see the growth opportunities in India? Your opening comments, and we can take this discussion forward as well.
Okay, good morning. First of all, good morning, everyone, and thanks, Mr. Kaushik. And I'll just tell you about with the opening comments. Like if you see, the overall disruption is already happened in the electrification of two-wheeler. If you see the overall growth of the two-wheeler industry, I think if I see the data of last 5-6 years, 2015 till 2000 last year, so there is a year growth was there. Yep. So starting from 16 million, it reached to around 21 million in 2019 somewhere. But if you see last 2 years, the growth has goes down. So if you see the year-on-year growth, it goes down to 18% to minus 13%. So last year it is somewhere around 15 or 16 odd million vehicles has sold of overall two-wheelers. But if you see the overall growth of the EV, when we started in 2015 and we launched our first product in 2017, that time the overall market of the EV altogether, whether it's slow speed vehicle, high speed vehicle, or maybe the some, you already mentioned that the people who come for 2-3 months just sell it from the import kit and they just vanish from the market. The overall market that time was around 40,000 or 50,000 a year. But now if you see the end of this year, this market is going to around 0.5 million. So if you see year-on-year growth, this is a very drastic change where the perception of the people towards buying the electric vehicle is more. It's not only about the push. There is a very reasons behind that. One is the push from the government, awareness about the electric vehicle. Third is the economics of the vehicles, the viability for that. Whether it's the central incentive by the government, state incentive, or maybe the ownership cost goes down. There's a lots of other parameters, whether it's the retail financing by the lots of the banks, fintech companies, or other things also going to happen today. So this makes the people more viable. They understand the end of the day, electric vehicle is more economical for them. And now the product which is available in the market, they are as good as the IC engine if compared with the commuting purpose. If you see, we talk about Okinawa, we always call it as a family product, family vehicle. As Mr. Gulati has already mentioned that in India, the emotional buying is a very important part of through the dealership. And if you see the overall market, our two-wheeler segment is mainly purchased by the lower middle class and the middle class, mainly, maybe 80-90%. So if you see that market, that is the choice of the family. When you buy any scooter or the two-wheeler, they always talk in the family which product they have to go for it, whether it's a viability for them, because India people lives in masses. So product should be for the masses. And as Okinawa, we always feel that we have to create the product which call for the masses and made for India and made for India. That is the most important thing. Because if you have the good supply chain in India, good quality control of the product, you will deliver a good product to the customer, and customer have a more and more confidence on the electric vehicles. So there is a lot of, I think maybe in the further discussion, we could talk about the technology, innovation, IoT enabled product, where we have a personalized connected vehicle. So the insurance company can also take a part of bet on that. So there is lots of, I think, new things are coming on this vehicle. This vehicle is become more electronic rather, it become more electronic vehicle rather electric vehicles. Absolutely. So the technology innovation is developing every day. It is changing every day. And if you see in few years, this market is changing in a very rapid pace. Of course, the government is talk about maybe 70-80% 2030. I think it is not that much percentage, but of course, there is a big growth. Everyone will see from the IC conversion to the EV. And it will be the best for not on the terms of economics, but from the social impact also, whether it's
Right.
the pollution, other things also. The most important thing is the awareness, which is already available in the market, and people understand good company, good product is available, they will go for it.
Absolutely. I think, you hit the nail on the head, Jitendra. Whether we are going to hit the government's ambitious target or not, that's secondary, right? But what's important is how the perception has changed in the industry, right, about electric two-wheelers. Like you rightly mentioned, the key driving factors are TCO, right? The cost of operation, and you said it right. It's a family product. In India, it's always a family decision when it comes to automobile ownership and buying. So, completely agree when you said that going forward, it is how these brands associate themselves with the customers that is going to drive penetration. Thank you very much. So, coming to you now, Srinivas, something very, very unique, what you have done. First of all, congratulations to you on Bike Bazaar. One of the emerging aspects in India that has been the backbone of multiple industries, including automotive, is digitization, right? And for you as well, that forms the basis of your entire business model, entire way of operating things. So tell us your perspective of, how Bike Bazaar plans to position itself in the ever growing market. I have one specific question which I'm going to reserve for the panel discussion, but your opening comments on how you see the digitization aspect evolving in the Indian market. Srinivas, can you hear us?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep. Yes, please go ahead.
So good. So good morning, everybody, and thanks a lot, Kaushik, for me being in this panel. Just very quickly to explain what Bike Bazaar is all about. It's actually a full stack life cycle company for a two-wheeler. And the way we understand a two-wheeler is that there's an OEM who actually manufactures, who does R&D, manufactures the product, and then there's a dealership network which actually sells the product and services the product over a part of its life cycle. But the two-wheeler lasts for about 15 to 20 years. And in that entire life cycle, a lot of things happen to it. Okay, it changes hands 3 or 4 times. It needs to be financed. It is used in a lot of places as an asset to get finance for personal loan. It's also insurance, as as Mr. Ghosh spoke. Only 50% of the vehicles today are insured, so they need to be insured. So we at Bike Bazaar actually add value at every stage of this life cycle of the ownership, ridership of the two-wheeler. So that's really the way Bike Bazaar. It started as a finance company. Even today, 90% of our business comes from finance. Okay, and we finance. We are perhaps the only ones who finance all kinds of two-wheelers. We finance second-hand two-wheelers. We finance new two-wheelers in deep rural, and we finance electric two-wheelers. I think we started financing. I think I met Mr. Sharma for the first time about 5 years back when I started the company, saying that I want to finance electric two-wheelers. He couldn't believe that there's somebody who wants to finance electric two-wheelers at that time. So that's a brief about Bike Bazaar. So just to talk about my opening remarks on this, 2-3 things. One is that we are definitely at a point of inflection. That what's happening in the two-wheeler industry, and COVID or no COVID, this inflection was going to happen anyway. COVID only, has actually made a lot of noise around it, in the sense that I think people are becoming overly pessimistic about the two-wheeler industry, which I feel it is not correct to be. The fact remains that still today, if you compare with countries like Indonesia, China, etc., our penetration levels are less than 60%. Household penetration level of two-wheelers, people who own a two-wheeler, is less than 60%. And if you go to states like UP, Bihar and all that, it's as low as 30-35%. So two-wheeler is going nowhere. Okay, so I don't think we should get worried just because we had a bad Diwali or we had a bad Dashara or whatever it is. Yes, of course, it's a cause for concern for people who have to do their business. But if you look at it in a little more, 2-year, 3-year, 5-year time frame, I think the two-wheeler industry is going to be there. The second aspect is that it's very, very clear in India, the two-wheeler is a tool and it's not a toy. So 80% of the two-wheeler, I'm just trying to say what will not change. Okay, 80% of two-wheelers will continue to be bought by, as rightly said by somebody, low and mid-income group customers, LMI customers. It is going to become more and more rural. In fact, you'll be surprised that out of whatever we do financing of electric two-wheelers, 70% we are doing in rural.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a myth that electric vehicle is only for urban. Okay, it's already started penetrating rural markets. It's a question of demand and supply. Once the supply starts improving, once people like Okinawa start working bigger factories, I think I'll see more and more electric happening in rural. So second thing which is not going to change is that it is going to be essentially a rural driven product. If the rural economy is down, the two-wheeler sale will also go down. So that's very, very clear. The third thing is about financing. And let me come to financing. Now, this is very, very surprising. You quoted a figure of 3/4. You are nowhere near the actual. It is less than 50%. Okay,
Really?
the penetration of two-wheeler finance is less than 50% today. And when I was with Bajaj, I remember about 10 years back, it was about 35-40%. It has grown to now 50%. And if you compare it with cars, which is 85 to 90%,
Right.
okay, there is a huge, and the fact is that the two-wheeler is no longer cheap. I mean, with all the kind of modifications which have been done, etc. I mean, you need at least 75-80,000 rupees to buy a new two-wheeler. Okay, in spite of the whatever is there. So you need financing. Financing is required. So that's not going to go away anywhere. So that's going to be a part and parcel of the entire thing. What will change then? I think what is definitely going to change is that the prime mover is going to change. Maybe from an IC engine, it will start becoming more and more electric. People say that almost 100% will change in about 4 to 5 years time. Some people say only 10% will change. We feel the truth is somewhere in between. We feel that the biggest change will happen first in the last mile delivery. That's where the big what you call scope exists. There are 2 million last mile delivery riders in India today. Within 4 years time, this number is going to become 9 million. So today you want a job, you need a two-wheeler and you need a phone. So
Right.
that two-wheeler is going to become more and more electric rather than being IC engine.
Right.
The second thing which will change, and that will be a very big drastic change, which I think the entire industry is not prepared for it, is that people will stop buying two-wheelers. They will not buy two-wheelers. They will go from a ownership to a ridership. I
Right.
have personally spoken to a lot of Swiggy delivery boys and all that. All of them love the electric two-wheelers, but nobody wants to buy them.
Right.
Okay, so it is going to become more and more a subscription model. And hence, I think financials like us will start becoming more and more important. Is that, so you need to have very, very innovative financial products. The same old, product of, 3-year EMI bharo and, 2,500 per month and all that, that product is not going to work in the
Right.
electric kind of a thing. Pay-per use, per kilometer financing on a daily basis, all these things are going to become important. Separating the battery from the vehicle in financing, that's going to become important. So all of these things will change. And I think a lot of financial companies are not ready for this kind of a change. So that's where specialists like us start coming in. And so these are my opening thoughts. So and maybe we can talk about it a little more as we go
Absolutely. Srinivas, thank you very much for that. Thanks for correcting me on the percentage of financing in two-wheelers. I stand corrected. And a couple of points that you made actually are perfect for me to continue the panel discussion. Those were going to be my points of discussion as well. Now I want, your perspectives, Bipul and Aniruddha, both of you, coming from an OEM's perspective. So this point, thankfully, has got nothing to do with premium and mass market, has nothing to do with volume. So I can get both of your perspectives there. So to continue the point which Srinivas made, right? One is the emergence of new business models. We have seen in India, especially with the emergence of e-MaaS, right, which is electric mobility as a service, right? That means you're looking at subscription-based models, short-term rentals, short-term leasings, completely going away from the traditional ownership model and moving towards ridership, as Srinivas said, and usership, right, for maybe other segments as well. So how do you see the moving away from traditional forms of ownership towards usership and ridership affecting the Indian market? Obviously, they're all driven by TCO, right? So that is one perspective. The second perspective I want from both of you, again, applicable to both your vehicle segments, is I know Jitendra is here as well. The emergence of new age OEMs, right? Who probably do not have a legacy of manufacturing, right? Unlike you have, both you, Ducati and TVS have, you have a very, very solid legacy of supply chain and component manufacturing. Whereas some of the new age OEMs like the Olas and Aethers, they have very good ideas on technology, very strong on technology, but very limited experience on the value chain itself and manufacturing. So how do you see the new age OEMs competing with the legacy OEMs? And also, if you can talk about the emergence of new business models. So both of your perspectives. Bipul, if you can go first.
Okay. So I presume there are 2 points, and so probably I will take up the second point first. So if we talk about the difference between the new age manufacturers or the new age retailers of two-wheelers and the legacy manufacturers, as we are known as. So probably Ducati is in a different position as compared to some other mass market manufacturers, because we have the luxury of not dealing in huge volume.
Right.
So that way, probably for us to manage our supply chain is still easier, because then we need to, or we are not supposed to handle lakhs, millions and millions of components or parts every year. Having said that, the complexity of the technology is definitely a challenge for us. And because of that, having a long-term relationship with our vendors becomes very, very important. Because especially if you look at Ducati kind of business, then we have a different bike every year.
Right.
Probably which is not there in the mass market manufacturers. And don't get me wrong, I have been trained by Bajaj Auto and then by Tata Motors. So I know what a mass market business means. So I have sold, I started selling CT100 and calibers, and then I graduated to Indicas and Sumos. So I know how the market feels like. However, in Ducati, what I saw and what I am dealing with now, that we have a model year bike every year.
Correct.
And that is definitely a new bike per se. So as you said that you have tried your hands on Panigale V4S, which blew you away. So now I can tell you, if you ride my Panigale V4S model year 22, you will get further blown away, because it's completely different bike now. And that has to happen on a yearly basis.
Right. So does that mean people, does that mean the premium segment actually offers itself very well to a subscription model, right? You don't own or purchase and own a bike, but every year on year, you pay a subscription amount and you get access to that particular model year's bike. Is that something that could be workable for the premium segment?
As an idea, that's a very good thing. We can look at it. However, if I talk specifically of Indian market, see, the problem or the gap in the Indian market is the downslide in the second-hand market. Ducati as a business also has Ducati approved as a part of business in our dealerships. But when we look at the second-hand market or the pre-approved market, as we say, then the price differential between a new bike and a second-hand bike is huge. So what happens if I am into the subscription-based business? Then what will happen to the price differential, which a manufacturer will have to follow, or a third party to whom I contract this business for? Then what is going to be the incentive for that person? And for certain reasons which we understand, which we don't understand also, the price goes down like anything just after 1.5 years of running. And in our segment, the average running for a bike is not more than 5,000-7,000 kilometers every year, unless he is entirely into adventure touring and he is a completely outright person. So if he's having a multi-stud and he has complete liberty of time at his, or freedom of time at his hand, then probably he will ride for 20,000-30,000 kilometers in a year. But that's a big thing.
Correct.
The customers, the average riding is not more than 5,000-7,000 kilometers. And if he is a Panigale kind of customer, then that BIC and Madras tracks are very limited. So that's a different thing.
Understood. So thanks for those points. Sorry, go ahead.
So coming back to the subscription-based idea, that's a good thing. But we still need to look at the economics of what is going to happen to the price differential. That's one point. Second point, the legacy manufacturer thing. Yes, we have a liberty of dealing with lesser component or supplier chain, but it's pretty complex. Every year we need to look at various things. And one point which you have already raised, which is very important for us also, that safety is very, very important for our kind of bikes. So we are actually at the forefront of technology. The kind of technology we are using in the high-end bikes, primarily I will speak for Ducati, but that's true for all my fellow competitors. So we are on the similar forefront of the technology. So that's very important. That takes away lots of time and effort from our side, and that means we cannot have the liberty of talking a new age manufacturer may have. So that's one very important point for us. And I believe the way the market is going, both the things will have to coexist. We cannot say that legacy manufacturer will just fade away into oblivion and new age manufacturer will take away, or they will be the king of the market. No, it cannot. Because having said that, the experience of managing a brick and mortar company for 50, 60, 100 years, which many of the legacy manufacturers have, that you cannot take away that experience, and which that gives the ease of handling the market.
Correct.
So that the teething troubles which some of the new manufacturers are looking at or they are facing, not fair to name any one of them, but that's evident that having the experience of the market is something which you cannot do away with.
Right. No, very good points. I completely agree. I don't think, I too don't believe that, one is going to replace the other. It's going to be a coexistential market. I completely agree. So Aniruddha, your perspectives, both on how you see the legacy OEMs versus new age OEMs and the emergence of new business models.
So first of all, I don't think this is a versus. I mean, to that extent, it's a versus every OEM. There we all
Exactly.
want our brands to,
Yeah.
to that extent, we are all in the market together. As long as every one of them is out there to serve the customer well and bring out new innovation, new disruptions, I think it aids all of us. I mean, it just keeps everybody nimble, keeps everybody fast. You need to keep moving. There are certain inherent agility that a new player brings in, comes a freshness of ideas. There is a certain amount of diligence, as was being mentioned, that comes from it. But I think as a learning organization, we've also kept being able to offer multiple new offerings across our entire portfolio. And which is why the TVS iQ was also launched in the electric forum. And we are able to, demonstrate that along with delivery. So I think it's a very, very welcome thing to see new entrants come in, new ideas come in, new models coming in. Because if it helps the consumer, then the size of the industry will grow.
Correct.
Being a very large player in a decreasing industry gives no joy to anybody.
Yeah.
I think we all should work together, and I think we are in expanding the market. As Sakesh pointed out, there's a huge headroom in terms of two-wheeler penetration. So I think that is a real need in India. As long as different players come together and we are able to service that real need for mobility or personal mobility in India, then I think that we will all be doing a service to the economy and the country. So everyone welcome, and it, I think, aids the overall industry. As for new businesses or new business models, I think I have a very interesting cross-section of people, and a lot of them will need to kind of work together to really have those business models come together. I mean, it is, Mr. Pathan very clearly said that there are new forms of insurance. I mean, if 2 years back we have been talking, then insurance costs would have been one of my pain points in terms of saying that what drove my costs up. If in 9 months' time he's able to come back and say, hey, listen, guess what? This is a pay-per-use product and it's bringing your cost down. I mean, great, outstanding. Similarly with Bike Bazaar, I think end-of-life problems need to be handled. Financing, if you can take financing for the last mile connectivity, which is also as a pay-per-use kind of an EMI, and from what he earns, he pays. I think those kind of business models will come up. And they will come up across the board. They will come up in Okinawa, they will come up in TVS iQ, they will come up even in the IC products as they get more connected. So I think a lot of this is going to happen across electric, across IC, across the entire layer of connected, and newer business models will come up. Two things I would leave in thought. There are different kinds of consumers there. There is a consumer who says that, listen, for me, the TCO is the most important. I'm here in it for the livelihood. And that kind of requirement is very different. There is another sort of consumer who says, listen, I have a periodic requirement, but it is point A to point B. And that's where a different kind of a business model comes in. But there is the little kid who stood in front of a poster for the Apache Tiara 310 and said, listen, when I grow up, that's what I'm going to be riding. And he's not going to share. So I think there is space for all consumers out there. I mean, and I mean, the reason why the resale value suddenly drops after 18 months is probably because he's launched the new model year product, and the new one is what takes over the desire. I think there is component and space for all kinds of consumers in the market of, especially the size of India. And we will need different kind of models, like you said, coexisting, and created by many of the players who are sitting around this panel, are working together, collaborating, and be able to do it. So it's an amazing phase for all of us to see this industry through, because over the next 5 to 10 years, we will see a huge change in the way we do business model, and all ideas and players would be needed and welcome.
Absolutely, Aniruddha, you made a very interesting point. In fact, just a interesting thing. I still own a 37-year-old iconic two-stroke that was made by a Japanese OEM in India. I'm guessing you can all guess what that was, which is fast even by today's standards, right? So, I mean, I completely agree. There will be different sets of customers who will own vehicles, who will look at subscription and new business models. Completely agree with you. So I'm coming to you. I hope Jitendra is not angry with me for posing these questions. So coming to you now, Jitendra and Vinkesh, I want your perspectives on this. We have seen in the recent news that, the new age OEMs, whether it is Ola or Teslas of the world, they are looking at a completely new model of direct to consumer, right? So their perspective is that, okay, they are questioning the need for a dealership business model, right? They are questioning, do we need a dealership? Can we take the vehicle direct to the consumer, sell directly to the consumer, service the vehicle at the doorstep of the customer, and so on and so forth? So from your perspectives as an electric two-wheeler OEM, and as Vinkesh, FADA president, how do you see the viability of such a business model? Do you think in an emerging market like India, it is going to be relevant? Or do you think it is going to coexist with other business models? I want both your perspectives. Jitendra, if you can go first.
Sure. So Kaushik, my perspective is that if you see, it's not a white good market. Please understand, it's a safety product.
Correct.
When we talk about, as I already told, that when we buy the product, it's a family decision, because the family goes to the dealership, they first check, they do the test ride, they have to understand which product is suitable for us, for the family. Because in India, when we talk about the middle class, lower middle class, the buying capacity of those, they always think that whether the father can drive the vehicle, even the daughter can drive if she want to go to the tuition, college or something like that. It is a product for the family. It is not for the individual person. It is not for the niche product where you want to. It is not a mobile actually, because where you use the mobile and after 6 months or 1 year, when the model changes, you can change it. Even my son, it is a vehicle for the years, maybe it is going to be the resell it, then of course the another family or another person will use that vehicle. So in my opinion, like when we are talking about the millions of vehicle in the Indian market, because the size of the Indian geographic is different, the size of the market is so huge. So we have to, is not so easy, because it's not like this. You can say water purifier, you can go and give the service to that, because it's a safety product. End of the day, you have to understand there's lots of consumables are included in that. There's other parameter which needs to be adjusted at the dealership that requires some equipments. So in that, in my opinion, I think the best thing is through dealership. It will give the experience to the consumer to use it, to drive it, to feel it actually. Because the most important thing is when we buy it, we have to feel it. Because sometimes people take it very personally. If I go to buy a two-wheeler, I will always consider at least I will take it for 5 years. I will not resell it. Okay, so it is not for the month, something like that. So best perspective is go through the dealership, understand the emotional buying, and the other perspective is always good for the automobile through dealership. Service,
Right.
if it is a service industry, understand. Buy some, you can sell something, you can do some services of the goods, it is okay. But for the automobile especially, I think my perspective is dealership is the right way to do the business.
Understood. So Vinkesh, Jitendra clearly believes that the need for or the necessity of a dealership, considering a market like India, is really, really important, right? And that the direct to consumer or the D2C is not really applicable to the Indian market. Do you share his thoughts as well?
My job is done, Kaushik. I'm thankful to Jiten to be so vocal on this. So practically, see, if you're talking about two-wheeler, in the car segment, Mercedes has already done it and they are
Right.
successful. And even Ducati can think of, because these are premium things. The numbers are very limited. So
Right.
Mercedes all over India is selling today at 1,000 vehicles. Maybe it can go to 2,000 or 3,000. Having a GST registration every state and an RTO tie-up maybe is possible for such a small number. But when you talk of two-wheelers, I feel the time will come when every electric vehicle OEM would be selling at least 1 lakh per month, so that the industry grows. Because we are today doing 14 lakhs, and uh, talking of EV becoming 30%, 40% in near future means the industry should grow to at least 16, 17 or 20 lakhs in 5, 7 years. So that huge number managing online is an headache.
Right.
I'll not comment that it's not possible. It can be possible. And additionally, the way India works, the kind of compliances we have, and the physical things involved. I'm not saying the customer touch point. Even today, registration, vehicle body shops, vehicle service, and a lot of small things will come in. So I have my doubts that without a good service station, so maybe dealership model will change. There will be
Right.
more like experience centers would be there.
Right.
So maybe they have only 2 or 4 vehicles at the dealership, and the customer doesn't ask, I want to see a black, this models and this which happens today. That he comes in, and if he's buying a product, he wants to see all the variants, all the color. Maybe that changes in coming time, but experience centers, service centers will be there. I'm not talking about the premium cars and premium bikes. It can still be there, or the niche products where there is no competition. Those can still work direct to customers, like Tesla. They are successful. But talking of that price and a niche product, it's possible. But not in a mass market bike. And so let's see how Ola works. But we have already seen how the issues have cropped up with Ola. The test drive is not happening in
Correct.
time. Customers dissatisfied. So let's see what happens with Ola. But my views are that this is not possible in mass market. Forget about two-wheelers, even the cars also. It's not.
Understood. Thanks, Vinkesh. I hear you loud and clear. So you do believe that for mass market, this is not a long-term sustainable business model or an option. But maybe the smaller premium OEMs can experiment with it because their volumes are much lower. I agree. So now coming to you, Srinivas and Parthanil, I want your perspectives on this particular point. Where is that? Right. So Srinivas, you mentioned that you are a full stack lifestyle company, right? Life cycle company. I'm sorry. And that is a point I want to talk about now as well, which is second life application of vehicles, right? So whenever we talk about second life applications or pre-owned vehicles, right? It's a very, very interesting market in India. Just a small piece of information. 2 months ago, Frost and Sullivan did a small survey on understanding the potential of pre-owned two-wheelers in India, and we saw that about 15 to 16% of the respondents polled. The respondents polled were about 4.5 or 5,000, and about 15 to 16% of the respondents in the two-wheeler space said they are open to consider a pre-owned or a used two-wheeler. I mean, if we had done this study a few years earlier, I'm pretty confident that number would have been much, much lower, right? So today, there is a lot more transparency, number one, in the second pre-owned vehicle market. There is a lot more, it's a lot more organized than before. And most importantly, with some of the OEMs themselves getting into the space, the mindset has changed. Earlier, if anybody bought a pre-owned vehicle or a used vehicle, it was always associated with the fact that he or she cannot afford a new one, so they are buying a used one. Not today anymore, right? So from Bike Bazaar's perspective, Srinivas, how do you see the pre-owned two-wheeler segment evolving in India? And the same question to you, Parthanil, from an insurance angle. You know, I agree with you. New vehicle insurance penetration is good, but whenever it comes to renewal, it drops like a brick, right? So how do you see this in the pre-owned vehicle segment? Both of your perspectives, if I can have. Srinivas, if you can go first. Srinivas, you're muted.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. And before that, just wanted to make one more comment on this entire business about being without a dealer or with a dealer. I think it's a highly underestimation of the dealer capabilities,
right,
in terms of increasing your sale, which is driving this kind of ignorance. Let me put it this way straight away. It is not only that the customer is coming, the dealer is actually selling your product there.
Correct.
Okay. And I can't even imagine that if people want to sell 10 lakh or 15 lakh vehicles a month, are they going to hold all that inventory themselves? See, today what is happening is that the dealer is a businessman who's investing in your business.
Correct.
So you are saying that I don't need his money. That's what you're saying basically. Okay, so I think I feel the answer is phygital. Everything is going to be phygital. Correct. I mean, a company like Lenskart could not make it, digital completely. I mean, they went and finally started opening.
They had to open up shops. Yeah.
Today, I meet a lot of investors because we raise money all the time, and all the investors are talking about O2O. They're talking about online to offline. Nobody is now saying that everything can be online or everything can be offline. You need both, basically.
Right.
So sorry, I just thought I'll add that point to this thing. So coming to the pre-owned vehicle. So we started in 2017 predominantly as a financier for pre-owned vehicles in India, because there was nobody else doing it. The two-wheelers, pre-owned two-wheelers, and we got a survey done, and we found that almost for every 100 new two-wheelers which are getting sold, 100 pre-owned two-wheelers are getting sold. So the market is big. That's what we thought. And guess what? The market is not that big. The market is actually less than 50%. Now, as compared to a car industry where the market is 150%, for every one new car getting sold, 1.5 old cars are getting sold.
You're right.
And the reason for it is that, actually the two-wheeler industry, sorry to say, the OEs are just not bothered about the second-hand vehicles. Okay, none of them are bothered. In fact, a few of them have started putting up their own showrooms, etc., but they have not been very successful in doing it. So it is completely controlled by so-called, unorganized retail outlets. That's a very decent name that we give to brokers, actually. So and they are present only in 12 to 13 cities in India. So if you go to the Prime Minister's constituency, which is Varanasi, you will not see even these brokers there. There'll be one or two of them. So the entire rural market, places like, for example, if you talk about Maharajganj, places like, these are big cities, Prayagraj, you're talking about this, they don't have a second-hand vehicle market at all. Okay. And that is what we at Bike Bazaar saw as a big opportunity. And we said that as we are already financiers, so we know how to evaluate a vehicle. So we might as well also get into buying and selling of this vehicle. And so we are putting up a franchisee network of Bike Bazaar, which we find a great deal of interest coming from the existing dealers. Okay, the dealers, the sub-dealers, and some service guys who want to put up these franchisees as not only add-on income to their businesses, but also to assist the sale of their new vehicles, in terms of exchange, etc., and all that. So in short, what has happened is that, that this industry has not got organized. The guy who is buying the new two-wheeler, there are two segments here. The one segment is the guy who actually cannot afford a new two-wheeler, and that's why he's buying a second-hand two-wheeler. And there, of course, he's very concerned about the quality of the vehicle, etc., and all that. Then there's a second set of people who are buying, are people who want to buy a big bike. You know, I want to buy a Bullet, they want to buy a KTM. And they said there's no reason why I should buy a new one. Okay, I can get a similar riding experience by buying a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old kind of a bike. Okay, there are some people who also do this on the super bikes. You know, for example, we have financed a few of the Ducati second-hand two-wheelers actually. So what happens really there is that a lease model is something which is going to work very well actually. So while the lease cannot be as low as 1 year, okay, that's when then you'll not be, but you can do a 3-year lease or a 2-year lease or a 3-year lease, wherein then the product actually you buy back and you then replace it with a newer product which the person wants. And there's a good market for this kind of 3-year-old second-hand vehicles and all that. In fact, today the industry is suffering from a shortage of second-hand vehicles. So if you want to go and buy an Activa, you want to buy a Splendor, you want to buy anything, okay, so you will not get what you want, so easily. Okay, so that's where it is. The last aspect to this entire business, which I want to add, is that we have to create also a good second-hand market for electric two-wheelers. And that's where I think we have started working on that already. Okay, and so there we have to solve the battery issue. That's what it is, because the battery comes without subsidy when you buy it as a standalone. Okay, hopefully over a period of time that will get solved. So we need to create also a very good market for one of the reasons why the adoption rates of electric two-wheelers is not as high as one thinks, and why people don't want to own rather than ride it is the second-hand vehicle price for the electric two-wheelers. But I think we can create those kind of markets too, basically.
Understood. Thanks, Srinivas. So, Parthanil, your perspectives on the pre-owned vehicle market from the insurance angle. Maybe just one more point, which is probably unique to the Indian context in the same categories. In many cases, when we talk about pre-owned or second-hand vehicles, the usage history, whether it is service history, usage history, or generally the history of maintenance history, in many cases the history is unknown. So does that have an impact on the insurance angle? How do you see that from the Indian context?
Okay, so there are 2 points. First, let me respond to your pre-owned vehicles part.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned that 50% of the vehicles on the road for two-wheelers are not insured. So once your pre-owned part is being financed or it is being given by a bike bazaar kind of a thing, so the chances are that most of these vehicles will be insured. So
yeah,
the
100%.
higher the pre-owned proportion goes up, your insurance penetration will go up. There is another thing, and I think Srinivas mentioned this, that the proportion of two-wheeler being financed being 50% is also another reason why the insurance penetration is low. So in financiers actually push the borrower to take an insurance. So if the cash purchase proportion is so high, it comes down, and there are other implications to that on a insurance premium side for that. Now, coming to your question on the service part of it, what we see in two-wheeler insurance, people suddenly come after 2 years to say that my insurance has lapsed and please renew this. So what we do actually, so we insure it, of course, with a restart date 3 days down the line, so that there is no. Now, what it doesn't give the customer is a no claim bonus benefit. So what you are asking me that whether the service part and other his history is there, history actually is not there. So at the end of the day, the customer ends up paying maybe 200 rupees higher than what they would have paid in a normal circumstances. So it is because the insurance premium per se is very, very small in terms of overall amount of annual part of it. I'm not Anuruddha, I'm not talking about the 5 years part of it, because you may say that customers are not paying after the first year. So why you should take it? But if you look at the overall part of two-wheeler insurance, which for 5 years today it is a 5,500 rupees. For the 4 years is a third party. That amount is so small. If customers do take it, of course, you have various kind of a situation of an accident, fatal accident, injury, or a total loss. They get benefited, and I believe the pre-owned market, if it becomes structured, organized, I think the insurance penetration will also go up in India.
Right. Thank you very much, Parthanil, for your perspectives. In the interest of time, maybe I'll add some summarizing comments and closing remarks. So, couple of points very, very clear from all the perspectives you've shared. One is the market is going to coexist with multiple players and multiple business options. I don't think it is going to be a situation of one hat fits all or one size fits all. Every niche vehicle segment will have a set of customers, will have a set of business models that are relevant to it. That's number one. Number two, I think we did not discuss this today, but if you look at the auto PLI scheme, although on the one hand it has raised more questions than it has answered, the positive aspect is that hopefully it will set the ball rolling for a lot more localization when it comes to electric two-wheelers, right? When it's a motors, batteries, controllers, battery management systems, and so on. So I think that is definitely a positive thing to look forward to. And additionally, as we go forward, there is a lot more transparency in the market. The customers are opening up to new ideas, in the form of, transitioning from ownership to ridership and usership. And that, I believe, is going to drive the market, especially with the younger generation who are a lot more interested in technology, digitization, telematics, for example. Again, telematics is something we did not discuss today in the interest of time, but something that has huge potential from the insurance angle as well, right? With pay as you use and ridership based technology. So with that, I'm going to conclude. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your perspectives. It's wonderful to have a varied set of opinions and perspectives here, like we have it. So Rohit, maybe next time let's have a combination of OEMs, insurance companies, pre-owned vehicle companies, electric two-wheeler OEMs, so that we get multiple perspectives. Thank you very much once again, gentlemen, and Rohit, back to you.
Thank you very much.
Kaushik, I completely agree. We can have a round two, definitely, most definitely. And thank you all for joining in. And in the interest of time, I'm going to move on to some of the next sessions. So you gentlemen can either choose to log off, or you can put your video on off and mute and listen into the next few sessions. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Thank you.
Thank you very much.